Inshallah, this year, the intention for the weekend post-Fajr series will be Tafseer of Surat Fussilat. And over maybe the last 6-7 years, we've done a number of surahs, including Al-Hijr, Sajda, Zukhruf, I think Al-Ahqaf or Al-Hujurat, I can't remember anymore. But Fussilat is a 6-page surah. I look for surahs that are 6 to 7 pages so that we can cover them within the 7 to 8 weekend days that exist throughout the weekend. Just because the weekend audience is a little bit different than the weekday audience. So the weekday do attributes of the Prophet ﷺ. You're welcome to attend those, but on weekends, inshallah, we'll recite Surat Fussilat. So Surat Fussilat exists within a cluster of surahs from Ghafir to Al-Ahqaf, and they're called Hawamim. They're called Hawamim because they all begin with Hamim. These surahs offer pieces of advice on the route of da'wah. So every cluster of surahs in the Quran has a little bit of a different niche than the one before it or after it. And these surahs, they focus on what it is that you should, what is recommended to do when you perform da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and things that are not unrecommended. And last year we recited the Zukhruf, which is within also the same group of surahs, so it was a part of the same kind of group and was doing the same thing. So the Zukhruf was warning us of basically a materialistic approach to things. And the moment you see the world through a materialistic lens, then da'wah doesn't work anymore, and and the deen doesn't work anymore in general. Surah Fussilat is right at the beginning of this group. And its message is really interesting, and you're going to find it kind of right up front. The message of Surah Fussilat, first of all, the name of the surah, there's only 2 surahs in the Quran that are named, that their names are verbs, not nouns. So it's something to kind of just to pay attention to. All the surahs in the Quran, their names are nouns, except 2, Fussilat and Abas. Abasa wa Tawalla. These 2 surahs, the names are actually verbs, which makes the surah extremely dynamic, because in Arabic, nouns are much more consistent. Constant is something that is it's factual. And then on the other hand, verbs are, they bring a certain sense of action or movement or repetitiveness. So the surah is called Fussilat, meaning the name of the surah is, it was detailed, or it has been detailed, or fully explained. That's the name of the surah. So the surah's name is not detailed, because that doesn't, no, it's a sentence. Fussilat in Arabic, a verb is a sentence. Meaning, when you say abasa, you can't just, it's a verb, and a verb in Arabic has to turn into a full sentence, meaning he frowned. So it's not frowned, no, it's he frowned. It doesn't work that way in Arabic. So Fussilat, this is a sentence. So the name of the surah is a full sentence. And it's very interesting because it's going to point out it kind of brings forward the theme or the point of the surah. The surah is going to say that in order for da'wah to occur appropriately, you have to explain things in full detail, really well, in order for the message to make it. And despite the fact that this book explains things perfectly, despite that, da'wah through character trumps it. This is what this surah is going to explain. That da'wah through character works better. It just works better. Even though the Quran explains things perfectly. The surah is going to explain, this is what the surah is going to start out by explaining right off the bat. Even though it explains things really, really well. And that's how it's supposed to be. And people should listen. And there's no reason for you not to listen to something that's being explained really well, because that's how you accept faith. But even though that's the case, through character it works better. And that's how the whole surah is going to explain that. Yes, the Quran is the highest degree of divine revelation, and the meanings of the Quran are extremely clear and very moving. But وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ. It just works it's just through character. Through character works better. People just respond to that more. One Muslim in the right position, behaving like a Muslim, following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is better than 1 million people like me sitting in places like this talking for hours and hours and hours. One action in the right moment, in the right place is more worthy than 1 million khutbahs given all across the globe for years and years and years. That's just the reality of the matter. We all know that. That's why if you actually want to perform da'wah, then you just need to be successful in whatever it is that you're doing. Whatever it is that whatever discipline or field Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought close to you or has shown you as something you're going to be doing. Doesn't matter what it is. Wallahi, it doesn't matter. What is it that you do? It doesn't have to be something flashy. You don't have to be a PhD physician. You don't have to be a minister. What is it that you do? Do you drive a cab? In that. Whatever it is you do, just be the best example of a Muslim in what you do, and the da'wah that you achieve by doing that, wallahi, is more influential. It's more impactful than what I will spend the rest of my life doing. What I will spend the rest, I swear to God, wallahi, this is the reality. This is what this surah explains. It's just more, it means more. It touches people way better. This is talk. Talk is overrated. We all know that. And at the end of the day, talk is talk. It's just words. It comes through your ear. You listen to it. But then when you see an example in front of you, that is what moves you. That's what that will change things for you. And that's how you want to change the world. That's how you change the world. When we talk about performing da'wah, and we encourage people to perform da'wah, I'm not really telling people to go stand outside a library or carry a bunch of and preach to people or knock on their doors or make anonymous phone calls or post stuff on Facebook. No one listens to this stuff anymore. No one cares. Just where are you? Where did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you in this life? What are your dimensions? Where are you positioned? I'm here. Then just be the best person you can. Perform da'wah through your character. Build your character. Make sure that you take time to understand who he was, alayhi salatu wasalam. Learn what the rulings of this book is, and then practice them genuinely, meaningfully. I'm not saying walk around being a mura'i. I'm not saying walk around just trying to get people to see how you behave. No. I'm just saying just being a good Muslim, within the position that you are is the best form of da'wah, by far. By far. Most Muslims, most people who accepted Islam during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, did not accept it through coming in and attending his khutbah. The majority of Muslims who accepted Islam during his life ﷺ, didn't do it because they attended a sermon he gave or attended a khutbah he gave. By the time they were attending something he was teaching or preaching, they had already accepted Islam beforehand. They accepted Islam based on behavior. It was observing him, ﷺ, observing the people who claimed to follow him. And once they saw something special. There was something different. They brought forward a certain sense of selflessness and altruism and sincerity and compassion that was very refreshing. And that's basically what made the difference for them. So we're going to recite, inshallah, Surat Fussilat. That's the theme. I just wanted to put it out there because it's really nice, it's really beautiful, and you're going to find a lot of the verses will direct us in that, or send us in that direction quite clearly. We'll start from the beginning of it. Just as a kind of point for you to keep in the back of your mind for the first 13 of these verses. There's a very known incident for the Prophet ﷺ during Mecca. And we don't have a lot of narrations in Mecca that are authentic, unfortunately. A lot of the narrations from Mecca just don't have authenticity because they were so far behind. They happened so long ago. Narration began during his Madani period, ﷺ. The Sahaba started actually memorizing everything he was saying and everything he was doing. But for those first 13 years in Mecca, they weren't doing that because they were under severe persecution. It was horrific torture on a daily basis. And it was happening on every level in every field. So they didn't do that. They still remember things, and the people who lived that can give you like a basic outline, but they didn't put in the effort to memorize narrations. This is what he said at that moment. So the narrations we have are far through. Like they're spread, they're sporadic, they're not that very well detailed, and they lack a little bit of authenticity. This story here is one that we can actually talk about because it has it. When the Prophet ﷺ, there was a period where I like to call it the negotiation period, where the people of Quraysh were losing. See, Quraysh was bankrupt. Philosophically, they didn't have anything. Like they couldn't hold a candle to what he was teaching, alayhi salatu wasalam. The Quran was way too powerful for whatever it is that they thought they could challenge it with. And after a few years of just going physically abusive towards the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the Sahaba, and that not working, they killed many people, but still nothing changed. He didn't slow down a bit, and people were still accepting Islam. They started to think, okay, this may not work this way. Let's see if we can try something else. Let's see if we can offer him things. Let's see if we can negotiate with him and see what he wants. Everyone wants something, right? Everyone has a price. Figure out what the weakness is. What is he after? Must be after something. No, everyone's after something. Just see what he wants. Just figure out what it is that he's looking for. Give it to him, and voila, we're done. We don't have to deal with this anymore. This guy who's coming here and pointing at our idols and changing the teachings of our forefathers and taking away our legacy and taking away our culture. So this is what they thought they could achieve. So they sent a man by the name of Abu al-Walid Utbah ibn Rabi'ah. And he was a man he was a very elderly man. He was one of the oldest people in Quraysh, and one of the oldest nobles of the land. A very wise gentleman, had a lot of hikmah. And he was very soft-spoken. He was very respectful. So he came to the Prophet ﷺ one day, and he sat in front of him. And he started to speak to him. فقال يا محمد إني مبعوث قومك إليك. I am the ambassador of your people to you. نسألك عما تريد. We're here to ask you what you want. فإن كان ما تريد ملكا ملكناك علينا. If it's sovereignty you're after, if it's royalty, we will make you king. We'll make you king of Mecca, if that's what you want. وإن كان مالا تريد جمعنا لك من أموالنا حتى صرت أغنانا. And if it's money that you want, we will all pitch in a fair amount of our own wealth until you are the most wealthy amongst all of us. You have the most money. وإن كان جاها تريد جعلناك كبيرنا. And if it's status you want, we'll make you the eldest of the elders. You'll become the noblest of the noble. You'll be given the name, something similar to what your grandfather had. In the narration, he actually says, جعلناك كعبد المطلب. We'll make you just like your grandfather was, the Sayyid Quraysh. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is what he's being offered. You understand how stupid this sounds for someone who speaks to Jibreel on a daily basis? You understand how idiotic this is for someone who speaks to Jibreel, who's being given a message, who's being told you have to get this to every human being on the planet, and he's thinking how he's going to do this, and some guy is coming to tell him, what, you want money? How much money do you want? Here's some money. And money, what are you talking about? Well, how about, you want to be king? We'll make you king. And he's sitting there, so he's listening, alayhi salatu wasalam. He's listening, he is not interrupting, he didn't say a word, just listening until the guy's going for it. And the adab he had, alayhi salatu wasalam, wallahi, this is the lesson you can take, is the adab he had, alayhi salatu wasalam. I don't know how he listened to this whole thing. I don't know how he didn't just interrupt him in the middle and say, okay, all right. Apparently we're on completely different radio waves here. This is not what you're completely off. He listened to him till the end. فَإِنْ كَانَ نِسَاءً تُرِيد زَوَّجْنَاكَ أَجْمَلَ النِّسَاءِ مِنْ كُلِّ قَبِيلَةٍ أَجْمَلَهُنْ. And if it's women that you want, we will find from each tribe the most beautiful woman, and we'll make sure you marry her. You'll have like 50 wives, and they'll all be beautiful. That's what you want. وَإِنْ كَانَ بِكَ مَرَضٌ أَتَيْنَا لَكَ بِالطِّبِّ وَالرُّقْيَةِ حَتَّى تَشْفَى وَدَفَعْنَا فِي ذَلِكَ أَمْوَالَنَا. And if you're ill, if you have a problem in your brain, or you're losing your mind, we will bring for you all of the doctors and all of the sorcerers, and everyone will pay money to make sure that we bring you your shifa. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is what he had to listen to. So once he was done, قال أفرغت يا أبا الوليد. Are you finished, Abu al-Walid? قال نعم. قال أتسمع مني. Can I respond? قال نعم. And then this. That's it. You would do what we're going to do right now. You would recite these verses. You wouldn't offer an argument. You would just recite the verses of Surat Fussilat. And I'll tell you what happens, inshallah, once we're done reciting them. But that's how he would respond, alayhi salatu wassalam. He would recite the first 13, they say 14, some scholars, of Surat Fussilat. We're not going to get that far today. We'll get that far tomorrow, inshallah, so I'll tell you the rest of the story then. But that's how he responded, alayhi salatu wassalam, to these outrageous offers. Some people, by the way, just as a caveat, so you'll say, well, why didn't he take the sovereignty piece? Because he said, I'll be king. Because once he's king, he can just make a ruling. Everyone has to be Muslim, and he can bring down the. It's not just about the achieving the goal. It's how you got there. Not just the goal. The ends don't justify the means. In Islam, ever. I'm sorry. The ends never justify the means in Islam, ever. I don't care what the end is. Wallahi, I can't think of an exception to this rule. There's no exception to this rule. The ends will never justify the means. Don't fool yourself. As a Muslim, do not fool yourself. That no, the end is noble, it's beautiful. So no, never. The means have to be haqq. Yes, your end is haqq, but the means have to be haqq. And if they're not haqq, we don't want it. This is the story of his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. This is not the only time he's going to be offered something that will allow him to achieve, would change the story of him leaving Mecca, which was the biggest catastrophe for him, alayhi salatu wasalam, because he never went back and he didn't die there. He died in a foreign land. He wasn't buried in the land he was born, alayhi salatu wasalam. So the story could have been very different. Many times he was offered many different offers for him to, if he took any of them, it would have been a different story altogether, but no. And that's what Quraysh couldn't understand, is that you're weak. What do you have? You have no money, you have no army, you only have, so many followers, half of them are in Habasha. Why aren't you accepting an offer? No. What is it? What is it that makes you so proud? And every time they offer you something, nope, I won't take it. Either it happens this way or I'm not doing it. Based on what? What do you have? What is it? What's the card that you carry? This is it. That's why. See, they couldn't understand. What he carried with him was al-haqq. And anyone who carries al-haqq has no reason to compromise. Has no reason to compromise. Would never sell out. Would never give in. Why? You're carrying al-haqq. You have the winning card. Why would you fold? Why would you accept any negotiation? You have the winning card. Let everyone scramble for as long as just stand your ground, yaqi. Just stand your ground and just play it properly and just do it the right way. And that's all he had to do, alayhi salatu wasalam. He just stood his ground the whole time, offering it. When you listen to the stories of the negotiation period, you're unclear who's weaker, who has the lower hand, who has the upper hand here. It's unclear because Quraysh, who of course rule the land with way more resources and way more followers, are coming to him offering him just anything. We'll worship your Lord a year and our Lord a year. No. Like we'll come in as Muslims. Just can you not have a sit with Bilal and Ammar and Suhaib and the slaves? Just let us sit alone. No. Ajib. You can't even do that? Can't even segregate a little bit? No. Either you sit with everyone else or go away. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's how he didn't, nothing. He compromised nothing. See, marriage is a compromise. This was not like that. Da'wah, his adherence to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the teachings, he compromised nothing. And Quraysh couldn't understand why was he so, because he had al-haqq. And because if you want al-haqq to actually prevail, the means to it has to also be haqq. You have to use a mean, the way you get somewhere, the route that you take, the steps that you take are also valuable. They mean something. He could have just accepted some of these, alayhi salatu wasalam. Maybe accepted the wealth, and that would have saved a lot of people a lot of agony. But no, I don't want anything you have. Because it's about what people have. What does Quraysh have that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam wants? Nothing. They have nothing that he wants. He wants nothing of them. What does the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam have that Quraysh needs? Everything. He had everything, alayhi salatu wasalam. They just couldn't see it. So when you have everything in your hand and they have nothing, and you compromise, you have just cheapened that which you carry. You have cheapened that which you have in your hands. And this is not cheap. This is not cheap. This is the most valuable thing in the universe. So why would you compromise? Why would you compromise any ethic or any value or a word of it? Not a word. Because nothing they have you want. What you want is in the hands of someone else. What you want is in the hands of someone else. They have nothing that you want. And if they don't understand the value of what you have, and if they don't want it, then that's their loss. It's as simple as that. And that's how he lived, alayhi salatu wasalam. So once he finished all these bizarre offers, he just said, A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim, as we will say inshallah in a moment. We'll recite inshallah a few verses and respond. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Hamim. تنزيل من الرحمن الرحيم كتاب فصلت آياته قرآنا عربيا لقوم يعلمون بشيرا ونذيرا فأعرض أكثرهم فهم لا يسمعون وقالوا قلوبنا في أكنة مما تدعونا إليه وفي آذاننا وقر ومن بيننا وبينك حجاب فاعمل إننا عاملون. So it begins with Hamim, and these are the divided letters at the beginning of many surahs in the Quran. They're like little codes, in my opinion. They're kind of codings of surahs. The surahs that begin with these letters are similar, and surahs that begin with similar letters are very similar as well. And it's just another form of challenging Quraysh that these are the letters that are used, that you use in your poetry and all the mu'allaqat that you have hanging on the Kaaba, written in the water, gold water. See if you can bring something that is even remotely similar to what we're going to have you listen to. So you just start to recite alayhi salatu wasalam, Hamim, Tanzilum min ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is revelation that was descended from the Lord who is most compassionate and most merciful. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I've explained these two names many times in the past, so I'm going to kind of speed through it. But there is a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically chooses to use these two names together frequently in the Quran. At the beginning of every surah, aside from Surah At-Tawbah, it begins with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You think about it, human beings have a tendency to take advantage of those who are a bit too lenient with them. So why wouldn't he just say Bismillah ar-Rahman al-Muntaqim maybe? Just to kind of even it out a bit. Ar-Rahman for those who have a little bit of a good character, and Al-Muntaqim for those who have no shame at all. But he insists subhanahu wa ta'ala to begin every surah with Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The one who has the most general compassion for all creatures, and Rahim, he who has compassion towards those who love him. And he chooses two names that come from the same root of empathy and compassion, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this surah here, in addition to the beginning of it, will start that way. This is the revelation that was descended from the Rahman ar-Rahim, from the one who is most compassionate and most merciful. What is this revelation? Kitabun, it's a book, Fussilat ayatuhu, which verses have been extremely well explained. Tafseer is when something has been detailed. Tafseer, that's what tafseer is, to detail something so there's no ambiguity. There's nothing that's unclear, it's very clear. Kitabun Fussilat ayatuhu. This is a book that had its verses very well and clearly explained. Qur'anan. So it's a book, and it's Qur'an means it's going to be recited, and that's what the word Qur'an means. Qur'an means it's going to be read, min qara'a. So the Qur'an is whatever that's going to be read. It's also going to be recited out loud. It's not just things to look at or something that was written. Kitab means a collection of thoughts, a collection of ideas, a collection of values. That's why if you go to a book of, if you pick up a book of fiqh, you'll say, or a book of hadith, you'll say Kitab and Nikah. So is it the book of Nikah? No, it's a chapter. It's a chapter. So Kitab is a collection of ideas, of thoughts. That's what it actually means in Arabic. It doesn't mean a book. It was later on used to explain, to describe a book, and that's fine. But the actual meaning of the word is different. It's a collection of thoughts or a collection of ideas. So Kitabun, meaning a collection of values or thoughts or ideas that have been very well detailed and explained for it to be recited in the Arabic language, Arabiyan, لِقَوْمِ يَعْلَمُونَ, for people who want to learn, or people who have knowledge, or people who know. For people who are able to appreciate what it actually has inside of it. قَوْمِ يَعْلَمُونَ. And this is where the points of the theme starts to come out. يَعْلَمُونَ. Because some people won't. Some people will listen to all of this and it won't mean anything to them because they're missing they don't comprehend. They haven't learned. They don't recognize the value in what's being put in front of them, which is really the case, isn't it? And the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some people value it and some people don't. It doesn't change its innate value. It doesn't change the fact that it is pure haqq. It's just the perception of the person listening to it. If you can't perceive that, then it's liqawmi ya'lamun. It's people who understand, recognize the value of what they're listening to. بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا. Within it, there will be good news delivered, وَنَذِيرًا, and warnings. فَأَعْرَضَ أَكْثَرُهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ. And many people who listen to it will turn away. أَعْرَضَ, turn away. فَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ, and they won't listen to it. They'll hear it, but they won't listen. There's a very distinct difference between the two. You can hear things, right? Do you listen to them? فَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ. And this is where, again, the theme starts to kind of unveil it, unravel. When you're frustrated with somebody in your life that you're speaking to, you're explaining things to, you're asking them to change and get better, and they're not listening. You're frustrated because you believe that what you're saying is meaningful, and you can see that they're not listening to you. Like they sit in front of you and they stare you in the face as you speak, and you know that the words are entering into their ear canal, and it's actually being processed by one of their nerves, and is going right into their brain, so they are actually capable of understanding the words that are coming out of your mouth, but they're not listening to a word you're saying. Very, very frustrating, especially for parents and for educators. It's hard because the person is in front of you, they understand, they comprehend, they're just not listening. The problem is that's the reality for most cases in the world. That's how life works. You can't force someone to listen to you. You can't. You will try and you will fail, and you'll be very upset at the end of it. So what do you do? This is what this is saying. What do you do? Kitab, Fussilat ayat. This is the book filled with values, detailed, for it to be recited in the language they understand. It will bring good news. It will warn people, but they won't listen. They want to listen. So what do? I'm stuck. You just gave me tanzeel min ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You just descended something to me from revelation from the most compassionate, the most merciful, filled with values and filled with thoughts and ideas and teachings, detailed in the right language for it to be recited, but they don't want to listen. Yeah, fix the problem, Sharif. Go ahead. Fix it. What are you going to do? They won't know. I'm not listening. I hear you speaking, and I'm not listening to a word you say. I don't care. فَأَعْرَضَ أَكْثَرُهُمْ. Most of them just turn away. فَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ. وَقَالُوا, and Imam ibn Ashur, rahmatullah, Allama ibn Ashur would say that وَقَالُوا here is not really what they said, it's what they actually mean by their actions. So it's not that this is not what they're saying. They're not saying this. Our hearts are in and veils from what you're. No, this is the explanation, description of how they are. هذا يعني حال قولهم, as they would say in Arabic. So وقالوا قلوبنا is not actually what they're stating, because no one said that. Like we have no record of, and no one says that. No one says, like if you speak to someone young and they're not listening to you, they won't come and tell you, my heart is in a veil from what you're saying, and and there is deafness in my ear, وَمِن بَيْنِنَا وَبَيْنِكَ حِجَابًا, and there's a barrier between you and me. No, that's not the case. It's just, this is the reality. The reality of what they're saying is that we, akinna wa qulubuna fi akinna. Akinna is the plural of kinan, and kinan is basically a veil, anything that you cover something else with. So it's a cover. Qulubuna fi akinna, our hearts are covered, they're veiled. Mimma tad'una ilayhi, from what you are trying to call us to do, meaning it's not getting to us, because the hearts are covered and nothing is penetrating. Wa fi adhanina waqr, and there's deafness. Waqr is deafness. There's deafness in our ears, but they're not deaf. It's just a figure of speech. وَمِن بَيْنِنَا وَبَيْنِكَ حِجَابٍ, and between us and you, there's a barrier. Somehow what you're saying is just not making it. Wallahi, this is word for word what most parents and educators have to deal with when younger people. It's exactly what you're dealing with. This person's heart is not making it. Like, I know what I'm saying makes sense, and I know you have the capacity to understand what I'm saying. There's just for some reason it's not making it. People are on journeys. One of my teachers said, people are on train journeys. Old trains, not the new bullet stuff in Japan. The old trains, where you would get on the train and then you couldn't hear anything until the train stopped. It was so loud that no one, if the person beside you was speaking, you would just see the mouth moving. You would have no idea what they're saying. And that's how people are. They're on their journey, and they're on their train, and it's really loud. So you're speaking, your mouth's moving, they're not hearing a thing. The only time you can actually make a difference is when their journey comes to a pause, to a transit, to a stop, and then they can hear you. You have to catch the person in the right moment to maybe make an influence them, offer them something new. Which is why Ramadan is so valuable, because Ramadan is, in my opinion, the annual stop of the train for all of us. It just kind of slows down. Here's a stop, just get out, to stretch your legs, Don't have anything to drink, obviously, but see, that's the idea. You get a little bit of a pause. وَمِن بَيْنِنَا وَبَيْنِكَ حِجَابٌ, there's a barrier between us. So what? What did he say after that? فَعْمَلْ إِنَّنَا عَامِلُونَ. You do your thing, we'll do ours. فَعْمَلْ, behave, like act, practice. Practice. We're doing our thing. Like we're acting the way that we think, we're doing our part, we're behaving the way we think it is. You do yours, فَعْمَلْ. Because when you do something, then we have an example to look at. You see what I'm... فَعْمَلْ إِنَّنَا عَامِلُونَ. You behave, you practice, you act, you bring forward actions, and we'll do the same. And then may the actions be compared, maybe based on the outcomes or the actions themselves. That's why it's a really big problem for us as Muslims to... when you perform da'wah to non-Muslims, I feel like there's always a really... So your book is that amazing. Yeah. Well, then why aren't you better than the way you are? If it's so, then what's wrong with you? And if it's that, because when we talk about the Quran, alhamdulillah, most of us are very passionate about it. This is the truth, this is the beauty, this is where the values. Really, okay, then why are you all like this? And what's wrong with your ummah? And what's wrong with you? And why do most Muslims behave in this manner? And I have no comeback. There's no good response to that at all. There's nothing besides just full shame and embarrassment and just saying, well, I don't know what to say. We're not. What are we doing? Are we saying, here, this book is beautiful. You practice it. We're good. Because people have the right to do that. They can just say, well, if that divine revelation is of that value, then why isn't it making a difference for you? Why aren't your lives much better? Why aren't your behaviors superior? Why don't you live a life that is more meaningful than everyone else? And you're not, then what's the problem? Is the problem the book or the problem? La. Jalla Jalalullah, nastaghfirullah. The problem is you, all of you, ma'ul, all of us. There's something missing. Something missing. فَعْمَلْ إِنَّنَا عَامِلُونَ. Recite a few more verses, to 8, and then we'll go, inshallah. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيَّ أَنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهُ واحد فاستقيموا إليه واستغفروه وويل للمشركين الذين لا يؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم أجر غير ممنون. So he's told, alayhi salatu wasalam, respond to these claims, these accusations, or however you want to put them. And they are saying, قُلُوبُنَا فِي أَكِنَّةٍ فِي أَذَانِنَا وَقْرٌ مِنْ بَيْنِنَا وَبَيْنَكَ حِجَابٌ. We're not hearing any of it. Our hearts are in veils. There are barriers between us. You do your thing, we'll do ours. Behave. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Say, indeed, I am but a human like you. There's no difference. يُوحَى إِلَيَّ. But I receive revelation. The revelation I receive is exclusively that your Lord is but one. إِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ فَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ. This is all you need to know from your deen. If this is all you knew, then you would have enough to actually figure out how to live your life appropriately. If all you knew was that your Lord is but one, and He requires you to take the straight path towards Him. Istiqamah has nothing to do with, this is not, obviously it's not literal. This is obviously not a literal command in the Quran. Everyone knows that. He's not saying that you can only walk in a straight line. You're not allowed to walk zigzag. You can walk however you want outside. Istiqamah is being uncorruptible. He's talking about corruption. Istiqamah is when you're not corruptible. That's what istiqamah is. I mean, you will take a path, and that's how you describe people you like, by the way. If you like somebody, you won't describe them as, mashallah, when he prays, amazing. You just, or when he's always fast day in and day out. If you're gonna actually compliment someone, you say this person is a straight shooter. This person will always come through with what he promises you. This guy will do the job correctly. This person is you talk about honest, you'll talk about integrity, you'll talk about trustworthiness. These are the values that basically explain what istiqamah is. This is someone who will not compromise their ethics, won't look for a back door, they won't go around al-haq, they have no hypocrisy in them. Istaqimu ilayhi. That's why the Prophet ﷺ in his own hadith, Jawami al-Kalim, when he was asked, give me a piece of advice, Ya Rasulullah. And he said, قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ. That's it. Just believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, say La ilaha illallah, and then just stay the course. Don't deviate. Don't compromise your ethics and your values, and you'll be fine. وَاسْتَقِيمُوا إِلَيْهِ. Walk that straight path towards Him. وَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ, and ask for His forgiveness on your way. This is for us. This verse here is for you and I. This is what He's looking for, subhanahu wa ta'ala. In order for this surah to work, in order for the da'wah to occur, and this is what you have to learn. This is what the Prophet ﷺ was taught. La ilaha illallah. Innama ilahukum ilahum wahid. He was human, alayhi salatu wasalam. There's nothing, he did not possess some superpowers that allowed him to behave in a way that we do not have the capacity to behave. He was given revelation that there's only one God. And to walk the straight path and to seek forgiveness on your way, because you will make mistakes, and that's normal. وَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ, and a severe warning to the polytheists, or those who refuse to believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then the verse actually describes them. The verse describes the mushrikeen in two descriptions. Number one, الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ, the ones who will not pay zakah. وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ كَافِرُونَ, and don't believe in accountability. And both of them are practical behavioral issues. Both of them. I know you may say to yourself, no, the first one is practical, the second one is belief. No, you would be wrong. Al-akhirah in the Quran is never talked about in the sense of it being a belief in something. Al-akhirah, when you talk about the hereafter, it's not, in the Quran, when it's talked about as an article of belief, it's not referred to as an issue of aqeedah. It's referred to as an issue of behavior. Because the only value there is to believing in akhirah and believing that you're going to be accountable yawm al-qiyamah, which is going to reflect on the way you make choices, or else there's no point. Tell me what point is there of saying I believe in akhirah, but your behavior does not reflect any of that. But you act as if you're not going to be held accountable by anyone, and you're not scared of the oppression that you cause, or the transgression that you cause, or the pain that you cause. There's no value. I believe in akhirah, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about being held accountable. I don't care about my choices or my decisions and their influence and their impact on people in my life. So when he talks about akhirah, he's talking about the most practical article of belief. So when he's talking about the mushrikeen and saying waylun lahum, warning to them of severe punishment to the mushrikeen, it's because la yu'tuna zakah, because they do not purify their wealth by giving and supporting others. Because they're not afraid of accountability on the Day of Judgment, so they're not keeping themselves intact for it. Two practical reasons. What if a Muslim doesn't do these two things? What if a Muslim doesn't pay his zakah, doesn't care, doesn't think about this, not something that they're interested in, and they live their life as if there's no accountability? He'll take mal haram, he'll whatever to get himself ahead. Whatever to get himself ahead, that means doesn't really care, doesn't really think about these things about akhirah. So how does that fit? How does that fit? Because when he said to the mushrikeen, he didn't start to describe them subhanahu wa ta'ala by their belief system and their problem, and they believe in rocks and they worship. No. He described them by their behaviors. By their behaviors. Just like a Muslim is going to, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. As far as the believers, the ones who do the good deeds. The one who actually perform the deeds Allah created them to perform. لَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. They will be given a reward that will never end. And they'll never be made to feel that they're inferior because of the reward that they're given. They'll psychologically enjoy it as well. But this is important, because the verse after people who are supposed to listen, who have every reason to listen, it's Fussilat ayatuhu, it's Quran Arabiyya, it's Tanzeel min ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. There's no reason not to listen to it. What you need to do is remember that La ilaha illallah and istaqim wastaghfir. Walk that uncorruptible path and seek forgiveness. And as far as the mushrikeen, warn them of severe punishment. The ones who don't give from their wealth to the needy, The ones who aren't worried about accountability, don't think about it at all. They're not concerned about Yawm al-Qiyamah and the fact that they're going to be resurrected and held accountable in front of God and held responsible for everything they did. As far as the believers who do the right deeds, they will be all about the deeds. Even the description of the mushrikeen here was practical and not based on belief system. That's why when you bring a Muslim who has I get confused. What do we do? What do we do? Explain to me, how do we go by life? If a Muslim does not pay zakah, for example, and has very little care about ma bikhaf Allah, as they say. Well, he's not mushrik because he's saying La ilaha illallah, but isn't that the exact description that the mushrikeen were given here? Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us something here. Yes, you claim what you want. You're lucky if you have if you were given the opportunity to say La ilaha illallah. You're so fortunate. We all are. This is the biggest blessing in our lives. We grew up and we were offered here. La ilaha illallah, it's yours. The ultimate truth is in your hand, so you say it. But that doesn't mean anything if there's no practice to solidify that, to prove it. When you say in your salah, and I'll end with this so you understand why Surat Fussilat is so important. It's called the book that was detailed. The detailed message, perfect message. Still people didn't listen because there's something missing. When you say Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, which is basically tawheed, you say that in prayer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to you in the hadith Imam Muslim, and you will say, Hada bayni wa bayna abdi. This is between me and my servant. What do you mean? It means we'll see. We'll see. You claim Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka, that's what you're saying? It's only me? Yeah, okay, we'll see. Go ahead. Live, that's what you're here for. Let's see if that's the truth. No, I said it. I know you said it. You're very blessed that you said it. Let's see if it's true. Let's see if there's any truth to this claim that you're making. Is there truth to the claim? That's what he says, Hada bayni wa bayni, this is between us. You and I will talk about this Yawm al-Qiyamah one-on-one. Did you truly Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, or is that just a claim you made? Because talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. The word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not. But talk in general, it's easy. Anyone can say anything. Not hard. Why do you think amongst the first people who will be thrown into Jahannam Yawm al-Qiyamah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala salam, Allah tub alayna ajma'in. In the hadith of Muslim, the first people to throw into Jahannam is a qari. One of the first people, before hisab, before putting up the mawazin. We don't even have the skills yet. And they'll be plucked out of the groups and thrown. Because they recited not for the right reason. Because they didn't recite for him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. They recited for a whole different reason. So they're not even worthy of hisab. But this is the teaching of the Quran. So this is what Surat Fussilat is. I would advise you to recite it and look for the gems within it that talk about that. Because this, for us, I think, is what we need today as Muslims. I'm going to end with that, inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah, we'll try to end at 7 o'clock every day. I'm sorry for taking a bit longer. Subhanallah bihamdik, la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Jazakumullahu khairan, barakallahu feekum. Please feel free in the future to leave at any point that you want. Don't feel that you have to stay. This is just an optional halaqah for those who would like to sit. Once you get tired or you need to move, please